What is going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here to make my post-game analysis video for the Miami Dolphins versus LA Chargers. It was yesterday at Hard Rock Stadium. I'm making this video obviously Monday, the day after. I do apologize, but if you guys were with me in my live stream, I was up all last night, yesterday as in Saturday to Sunday, because I had to work super late. I drive for Lyft, so I was working the night shift. I was up all night. I was exhausted, so I ended up crashing super early at like 6 p.m. or some shit like that yesterday. So I was super tired. Didn't get to make it yesterday, so I do apologize for that, but I'm making it today. And there is a lot to talk about. I will say there were some good things in this game, okay? I'm going to lead with that. There were some good things. I'll talk about them throughout, but there was obviously not anywhere near enough good. And we still ended up getting what I'm dubbing to be a mini blowout. Not a full blowout. I think I've decided my parameters for that are it's a full-on blowout if you get blasted by 25 points or more. Point differential. I mean, we're still up fast on pace to be the worst team ever in NFL history. So that's not good, but we didn't get fully blown out. It was, by 20 points, which I will call a mini blowout. So I think I've decided mini blowouts are anywhere between 15 to 24 points that you get beat by. It's just arbitrary, but I'm throwing those numbers out there. It sounds good to me, so I'm going to run with it. So we were mini blown out. We didn't have a full blowout, so that's a positive. But before I get into, all the stats and the analysis and stuff like that, let me go ahead and start off with yesterday's inactives. So Albert Wilson was inactive, Allen Hurns was inactive, Bobby McCain was inactive, Jamal Wiltz was inactive, Myles Gaskin, Keaton Sutherland, and Jesse Davis. So obviously, not having some of those guys definitely hurt. But I mean, the outcome was pretty as expected at the end of the day. I will say though that it was the offense that surprised me a bit yesterday. Certainly out the gate, although they definitely fell off the rails coming into the second half. And as per Josh Rosen's comments after the game, that could at least the good stuff that we saw at the beginning of the game could in part be due to their game plan. He was saying that they had a really good game plan. That's not necessarily a good thing though. I mean, if you guys can't continue to perform well outside of the pre-made, preset game plan, that's not good. But they did take some steps forward. There were some steps forward in this game. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. Obviously, of course, it wasn't nearly enough. And we are unfortunately still on pace to be the worst team ever in NFL history. So, we are now 0-4. The Chargers are now 2-2 after their win. It was a 30-10 loss. So again, 20 points. That puts us at, let's see, we've given up, we've been outscored 163-26 overall. 163-26 in our first 4 games. Our point differential is 137. Also terrible, and again still on pace to end up being the worst ever, I believe, and so that's not good. So it's rough, but again there were some positives, so let's there weren't too many, so they're gonna be scattered throughout this analysis, but we'll get to it anyway. So total yards, we had 233, they had 390. We had 161 passing yards, they were at 311. We had 72 rushing yards again, so we still have yet to break 100. So, you know, our rushing game, but that was slightly better than last week, because last week actually 13 of our 72 rushing yards were actually, you know, Josh Rosen just kind of running around for his life. And so this was actually like pure rushing yards. So we did have a slight bump up in that regard, but again, it's super marginal. But we held them to 79 rushing yards, which is our best yet, and substantially so. Because keep in mind, we've been giving up 200 yards per game, right? So that's obviously definitely a bright spot and some progress that has been made. You know, I mean, obviously we have to wait and see how things go. You know, our bye week is this upcoming week. You know, hopefully we can get some guys healthy, back up to, you know, full strength, and see how we go from there. But, and we got to see if they can continue to make progress. Let's see if they can, you know, or if they end up plateauing or what happens, right? So we want to continue to see progress out of these guys. I mean, again, it's super marginal. The team is super young, super inexperienced. There's injuries. There's all this stuff. You know, Bobby McCain he was held out this game. I don't know if he's going to end up surviving the season without being on injured reserve with that shoulder. His shoulder, the reports are that it's separated, so that's worrisome. So we'll see how that goes. But we got this next week off, and hopefully we can get guys healthy, and hopefully we can continue to make progress. I mean, like, I'm trying to be super fan. I'm trying to be like positive, you know, and say positive things, but unfortunately there weren't too many. But there was some progress, so let's keep that going. Anyway, we were 5 yards per play. They were at 6. No one lost a fumble, but we did have fumbles in this game. We were just fortunate enough not to lose them. But Josh Rosen did also throw an interception. We were 50% on third downs in this game, and they were 61%, which is the best we've done to this point. However, real quick, I do want to read this tweet for you. I retweeted it, but this was from Joe Shad. This season, the Miami Dolphins, 2 touchdowns, 5 sacks, 9 rushing first downs, and 26% on third downs for the season. Dolphins opponents, 21 touchdowns, 18 sacks, 5 of which came in this game, 42 rushing first downs, and 58% on third downs. So, again, as you can see, overall, we're stacking up pretty terribly. But this was our best game to date. Just keeping it real. But let's also, to keep it real, let's also make sure that we understand that the Chargers did come into this game very beat up, and they got even more beat up throughout the course of the game. I mean, they lost, you know, some pretty key players, including Denzel Perryman, and Melvin Ingram came out for pretty early in the game and for the majority of the game. And they still managed to get 5 sacks. So, you know, but let's continue on. We had the ball for 22 minutes, 24 seconds. They had it for 37-36. So again, heavy in their favor. Our defense had to play longer and more than it should. We had 5 penalties. They had 10, and those are just accepted penalties, so there were more in the game. But to part of my point, not only were the Chargers super beat up and then got even more beat up in this game, but they also shot themselves in the foot quite a bit like they did last game. As you can see, they had 10 penalties. But I will be fair, I will be honest, there were 3 penalties when I was watching the game. There were 3 penalties that were called on the Chargers that negated, you know, substantial plays, including a 69-yard touchdown pass. I can't remember to who. I don't remember to who. I want to say maybe Keenan Allen. I think it was Keenan Allen. Yeah, it was Keenan Allen, now that I think about it. There were 3 penalties that were called on the Chargers that negated pretty substantial plays, including that 69-yard touchdown reception, that were just bullshit. Total bullshit calls. The officiating, the state of the officiating in the NFL is still garbage. That hasn't changed. I talked about it a lot last year. I'm not talking about it as much this year because of the fact that We've had a decent amount of penalties, and you know, I'm sure some of them were, you know, ticky-tack or stupid or whatever, but there's far too many other things to discuss, right? Like last year, the problems with the team last year, the two biggest problems we had last year were just non-stop injuries and the shitty play call, or officiating, the shitty officiating. Those were the two biggest issues with last season. Everything else was just kind of like, you know, whatever. I mean, those were really, but this year we obviously have far more things to talk about, far more issues. So that really hasn't been the highlight. But again, I got to keep it real. And so, like, just to real quick to explain a little bit on that one touchdown pass that got called back, they called Keenan Allen for I want to say it was like lowering the helmet to make contact or something like that. Or no. Actually, I think it was offensive pass interference. That's what it was. It was an offensive pass interference call. And when you watch the tape, he catches the ball. The defensive back, whoever it was, I don't remember, you know, went to like make a play, right? And maybe like deflect it or whatever. But as that was all happening, the defender, I don't know if like he slipped or what, but he started like falling backwards, and his legs started to get a little bit entangled with Keenan Allen's, and so he you know, kind of leaned forward a little bit. He did not, it was just slightly, him being slightly off balance. He didn't do anything whatsoever, not a damn thing. And he got called for it, and the touchdown got taken back. Also, real quick, I would like to mention, though, that I was not that wrong in my score prediction. I said it was going to be 38-7. We did score a touchdown, which was nice, but I wasn't totally, you know, too far off. It was 30-10. Just wanted to point that out really fast. But yeah, so again, though, I just got to keep it real. So there were a lot of things in this game, though, that if it was different, like if the Chargers didn't shoot themselves in the foot a lot, if they didn't have those three plays that negated substantial, or those three calls that negated substantial plays, I mean, this certainly could have been a lot worse. If they didn't lose Melvin Ingram and Denzel Perryman and a bunch of guys, right, during the game, not just have a bunch of guys out prior to, it certainly could have been a lot worse. And that's why, like, unfortunately, like, I want to make sure people are tempered, because there was progress made in this game, but it was marginal, and it was in part due to a lot of other things, not just the team, right? Like I feel like, and this is the problem I have with people, because people don't like to take everything into full context, right? A lot of people will like look at just some of the stats that we have, like the 50% on third downs, or, you know, 5 yards per play, or whatever, right? We scored 10 points again. The offense looked all right. Josh Rosen's stat line is pretty solid, right? Like, people look at that and be like, yeah, dude, Dolphins are making so much progress. We're so much better. Calm down, bro. There's a lot of factors that went into this. And unfortunately, when you take everything into consideration, you know, it was, I mean, just the progress itself without any of the other context was marginal. But when you take all those other factors into account, it very well could have been worse than it was. But anyway, so moving on, though, Josh Rosen, his statistics, his stat line for this was, and he played the whole game. Fitzpatrick did not come in at all. He didn't even need to get subbed in when, you know, we were losing pretty bad at the end. Although, again, you know, it wasn't a full-on blowout, so, you know, from that perspective, there really was no reason to sub Josh Rosen. And let's be clear, Josh Rosen is clearly the better quarterback and does give this team the best chance to win. As I've been saying from the beginning, I said, you know, that he should be the starter, but Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to be the starter in week 1. I was correct about that. I was also correct about the fact that I said it would take 2 to 4 weeks, depending, on a couple different factors that I didn't know at the time, but it would take 2 to 4 weeks before eventually Josh Rosen did become the starter. And that would either be because Ryan Fitzpatrick got hurt, which he didn't. He did get, thrown around like a rag doll quite a bit, but he didn't actually, and he did get a cut on the upper bridge of his nose, but he didn't get hurt. He got benched because he was super bad production-wise, and that was the other reason I cited for why it might happen. It did happen a little bit sooner. I thought it was going to probably happen after week 3. It did happen on the earlier end of my prediction window, but I was correct, and they did go with him, and it makes sense because he is the better quarterback and does give you the better chance, even if it's not really even still a chance at all. But he was 7 for 24, 70.8 completion percentage, which is solid. 180 yards, okay. 1 touchdown with 1 interception, okay. With an 88.9 passer rating is okay, right? So, not stellar, but he did have a pretty solid stat line, and he performed well. Josh Rosen, if you look at the tape, actually did perform really well. He did look like he had some poise at points in the game, looked like he had a solid command of the offense. But again, most of that, the vast majority of that was really in the first half, which a lot of was scripted, especially earlier on. In the first quarter, there was a bunch of stuff that is scripted. And so in the second half, they did come off the rails, and the offense was just garbage. Obviously, they didn't score any points. Yeah, and so in the second half, we have still yet to score a point at all in the second half throughout our first 4 games. And we are outscored, I think now it's 81-0 or something like that. Which obviously is terrible. So, again, there was some minor steps forward, but unfortunately not anywhere near enough. Phillip Rivers was 24 out of 30 for 80% completion percentage, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 131.9 passer rating. And so that is the stat line that you want to see, something along those lines. Rushing, Kenyon Drake led the way for us. 9 rushes, 44 yards, and a 4.9 average. Mark Walton, 6 rushes for 23 yards and a 3.8. They let Austin Eckler led the way for them. 18 rushes, 60 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 3.3 average. And Troy Maine Pope had 10 rushes for 20 yards and a 2 average. Now, again, we did have a solid day in run defense, but at the same time, as you could see, their attack was also more pass-oriented. Also, let's make note of the fact that they didn't use Melvin Gordon at all, even though he was active, he was dressed, and he was ready, because they were trying to preserve him, trying to make sure that, they didn't use him. Basically, their plan, and they were talking about this the whole game, is they wanted to use them only in an emergency situation. So in other words, if not that there was really much of a chance of this, I don't think, but if we had the lead for a little bit, there's like memes and stuff about how we had it for like 5 minutes. Yay. But anyway, we had the lead but if it looked like we were going to come out and play better football than we have been or than we did, maybe they would have used him. But they weren't really focused on the ground attack. So that also plays part into it. But they did do well. Their offense was moving the ball on us the entire game, right? And so, that's not good. That's not good. And again, most of it was through the air. And they didn't use Melvin Gordon at all. So let's get into receiving. Devontae Parker led the way for us, 4 of 4 for 70 yards and a score. Preston Williams is 4 of 7 for 46 yards. KD had 3 of 5 for 29. Mark Walton was 2 of 2 for 11. Nick O'Leary 1 of 1 for 19. Kalen Ballage 1 of 3 for 10. Dontrell Inman led the way for them, 5 of 7 for 76 yards and 2 scores. Austin Eckler was 5 of 5 for 62 yards and a touchdown. And so, as you see, Austin Eckler played a large part in the passing game as well, and had similar stats, right? So he had 60 rushing yards with 62 receiving yards, and he had a score a receiving and rushing score. Keenan Allen was 5 of 6 for 48. Xavier Howard did do a solid job of limiting him. He didn't completely shut him out. Obviously, he was 5 of 6 for 48, but he did do an overall solid job. He did have a bit of a bounce back game from last week, so that was also a good thing to see. Lance Kendricks was 2 of 3 for 37. Jeremy Davis, 2 of 2 for 25. Andre Patton, 2 of 4 for 22. Derek Watt, 1 of 1 for 24. Troy Pope, 2 of 2 for 14 yards and a score. And Sean Culkin, 1 of 1 for 12. He was a guy who got hurt during the game as well. Sean Culkin, one of their remaining tight ends, right? Because Virgil Green was out going into this game. Hunter Henry was out going into this game. They did still have Lance Kendricks, who did some good things for them, and Sean Culkin, who got hurt. After literally on the one play that he had and the one catch that he had, the one for 12 yards, he got hurt on that play. So again, the Chargers were super banged up. Fumbles, Kenyon Drake, Josh Rosen, and Preston Williams all had a fumble. Luckily, none of them lost them. We were able to get him back. But again, I mean, a lot of that stuff, right? So, and Phillip Rivers also had a fumble but didn't lose it. But so in all of those cases, including with Phillip Rivers' fumble, you know, just a slightly different bounce, and it could have been the other way. So we had three fumbles that could have gone to the other team. We were fortunate that they didn't, but we cannot, right? So again, so just to, in the Patriots game, everybody was like, oh, the Patriots don't play well and the Heat and blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever it was, 5 out of 6 of the last games, blah, blah, blah. Again, most of those games, we had Ryan Tannehill and at least an average team, far different than now, but it's superstition, right? And then so coming into this game, everybody's like, oh, the last 8 games that the Chargers played in Miami, Miami won every single one. Okay, great, dude, but the past has no fucking bearing on this game or what's going on with the team right now. Absolutely none. So it's all just superstitious shit that, like, it annoys me when people hang their hat on that. Like, oh yeah, man, you know, they haven't won a game in Miami in the past 8, so we could totally win this. Like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Like, stop with that. Like, if you have some sort of tangible evidence to show that we might actually be able to win the game, okay, fine, I'm cool with that. But just to say that, oh, you know, in years past, this team hasn't performed well here, dude, like, who the fuck cares? That's years past. I mean, they're fun numbers to look at, but that's it. They're fun. They have absolutely no bearing whatsoever on the here and now, right? Anyway, so continuing on. But anyway, so my point is, you can't hang your hat on that, right? So, and again, in this case, we lost, or we had 3 fumbles. We were lucky that we didn't lose any of those. We cannot hang our hat on being lucky either, right? So defensive statistics, Rashad Jones was back, and he did lead the way for us with 6 solo tackles, 3 assisted, and a pass defense. Jerome Baker had 5 solo, 1 assisted. Raekwon McMillan had 4 solo tackles, 4 assisted tackles with a tackle for loss. Taco Charlton had 4 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Again, to be clear, that sack, tackle for loss, and one of his tackles are all the same stat, right? But let's also be very clear that this sack from Taco Charlton this week, and this is another positive that you can take out of it, this week was a completely legit sack. He totally beat the tight end that was trying to block for him. Also, real quick though, because I thought about it, let's also note that we did use Max Protect again quite a bit, and so that also plays a factor into why the offense early on was able to do some good things. Anyway, back to Taco. He just totally beat the tight end, I believe it was, that was supposed to block for him. Phillip Rivers didn't see him at all. Got a good clean sack, and it was beautiful. It was nice. Whereas last week, right, everybody was hyping up Taco Charlton for having a sack against the Cowboys, but he shouldn't have. It was a sack because Dak Prescott just, for some reason, didn't get rid of the ball. He just didn't get rid of it. He had plenty of time to. He saw Taco Charlton coming at him. He just didn't get I assume he did. He'd have to be blind not to, but he just didn't get rid of the ball. Same thing with Bobby McCain's interception last week. He shouldn't have thrown the pass. Dak Prescott, it was into like at least double, maybe triple coverage. Bobby McCain just happened to be in the right spot, and he airmailed it to him. So those were on Dak Prescott, right? Like totally his fault, and it didn't really have much to do with our guys. In this game, Taco Charlton, it was all him. All him, all him, all him, all Taco. He got that sack, and so good for him. Who had... okay, right. And let's move on. So Xavier Howard had 4 solo tackles, 1 assisted. He also had... Right? Didn't he have a... I could have sworn that he had a pass defense, but I guess not. Because I did not put it in here. But let me just check really quick. No, he did not. It was a couple other guys. No, okay. We had 3 passes defensed in total. It wasn't Xavier Howard. It was Rashad Jones and a couple of the other guys. But anyway, Xavier, he did have a solid bounce back game though. And again, limited Keenan Allen. He didn't go off on us, but they had plenty of weapons. It really didn't matter. Avery Moss contributed 4 solo tackles. Eric Rowe was 3 solo, 3 assisted tackles, and he had a pass defense. Stephen Parker had 3 solo tackles. Ken Webster had 2 solo and also had a pass defense, so that was the 3rd one. Charles Harris had 1 solo tackle, 1 assisted, and a tackle for loss. So we had like 3 passes defensed, like 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. Kind of whatever. I mean, obviously, again, nowhere near as good as it needs to be, but you know, there were a couple, you know, bright spots in there. Rayshawn Jenkins led the way for them. 5 solo tackles, 1 assisted with 2 tackles for loss. By the way, they had 6 tackles for loss. They had, let's see, they had 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, an interception, I think like 3 forced fumbles. They had 3 forced fumbles and, or no, 2 forced fumbles, excuse me, and a pass defense. So they, you know, they had a solid showing there on defense statistically. And I mean, certainly in the second half, their defense wasn't doing very well in the first half, to say the least. But they certainly picked it up in our offense. Again, you know, the rails came off at the beginning. So, you know, starting this game real quick, the defense, you know, started out doing not very good in this game. And then they picked it up a little bit later on, and then kind of fell off again. And then the offense started out pretty strong, but then the wheels came off in the second half. Casey Hayward had 4 solo tackles. Desmond King had 3 solo, 1 assisted with 2.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble. Denzel Perryman, again, who ended up coming out of the game, along with Melvin Ingram. Both of those guys got hurt and came out. He had 3 solo tackles and a tackle for loss. Michael Davis had 3 solo with an with an interception. That was the lone interception that Rosen threw in a pass defense. Uchenna Nwosu had 3 solo tackles and a tackle for loss. Thomas Davis had 1 solo, 3 assisted with a half sack. Joey Bosa had 1 solo tackle, 2 assisted, and a half sack. Isaac Rochelle had a solo tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Justin Jones had a 1 solo tackle and a forced fumble. And Jerry Tillery had 2 assisted tackles with a half sack. Let's see. Getting into the kicking game, Jason Sanders, and he was only 1 of 3 for his field goals, so he missed 2 of his field goals. Obviously terrible. With a long of 30 and 1-on-1 for his extra points. Ty Long was 3 of 3 on his field goals with a long of 51 and 3 of 3 on his extra points. In the punting game, Matt Hawk had 2 for a 51.5 average, 1 inside the 20 and along a 57. Solid there. They didn't punt at all. And it was also good too that we didn't have to punt that much. We only had to punt twice, which was good. But again, that was mostly in the first half, because of the first half and the performance that happened. And then of course, you know, we fell off the rails on offense. Kickoff return, they didn't have any punts at all. Kickoff return, Jakeem Grant had 5, 22.4 average with a long of 29. Desmond King had 1 of 12 yards. In the punt return game, we didn't return any, obviously because they didn't punt at all. But Desmond King had 1 for 1 yard. So yeah, so to wrap up, I mean, again, you know, so there were some good things in this game. Again, not nearly enough. And it, you know, when you take things into full context with the injuries that the Chargers had coming into this game, the injuries that they sustained throughout, you know, things actually could have been a lot worse. Overall, the outcome was about what was expected. You know, we lost by double digits. We lost by 20 points. You know, we're still fast on pace to be the worst team that ever existed in NFL history. So overall, it's still bad, but there were some bright spots. There was some progress made. Do I think it's going to end up being enough? I don't know. I mean, if I'm being honest, probably not. We're probably still going to go 0-16, but, you know, we'll see. I mean, they still have, you know, another 12 games to play. You know, maybe they can continue to, make some progress, and maybe they can squeak out a win against, like, the Jets at home. So, you know, do I think it's going to be enough? Probably not, you know. But they do still have some time. You know, again, maybe they can, you know, get things, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can continue to make some progress. I feel like, again, this team was built to do exactly this. And, you know, the coaching hasn't been great in a lot of ways and so on and so forth. So, you know, I'm trying to be fair. You know, I do want to point out the positives and stuff, but I got to keep it real with y'all. I don't really think it's going to be enough. I think that we are going to have to deal with the fact that it's going to most likely be an 0-16 season, and we'll probably be the worst team that ever existed in NFL history. And that's the reality, at least as of right now. Again, they got another 12 games. Maybe they can do, I don't know what with it. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, it certainly stands at that. And so, yeah, that's, like I said, that's it. That's the way it is right now. And, you know, that's what I got for you. This is, you know, that's my analysis. That's my perspective. That's how I see things based off of, you know, the film, based off of the stats and all of that. Right. So, you know, clearly, we, you know, the other YouTubers and stuff, we all see things a little bit differently. You know, there's gradients there. And, you know, I'm probably, you know, if you wanted to put it on a range, you know, I'm probably on the one extreme. TD is probably on the other, and it probably goes, you know, I'm the most, if you want to call me pessimistic, I don't care, whatever. It's, you know, it's just realism because it's what the facts have proven to us to this point, but whatever, you can call me pessimistic, fine. So I'm on that edge. Then it's K Flexin, then Doug, and then, you know, TD on the optimist side, or, you know, I would say the, you know, the blind side, the blind side, whatever, the delusional side, right? Because the facts just don't support that right now. So, but it is what it is. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. Wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoy my videos. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I'm out. See y'all soon. Fins up.